This is the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan.
The least knowledgeable sports talk person that I've ever heard.
Eric Graham.
He's notoriously fussy.
Sam Ballard Jr.
He has no idea what he's talking about.
Nick Rendo.
He falls asleep while he's on the air.
And Josh Matthews.
The only time he ever goes viral is when he looks like a buffoon.
And now, back to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RPM Podcast. Skeleton crew today, but we got all the important people that matter. And by that, I mean we have our buddy Josh Matthews, the producer who puts everything together. Hi, Josh.
Howdy.
How are you doing?
Still breathing.
Well, that's the simple terms. Whiskers is in the house. You can't see her on the GoPro, but
him.
He.
It's a him.
It is a.
It's obviously very
I know
obviously
very well
a him.
that it is a him. And he apparently reacts to his name because ever since I said it, his ears are spazzing out. That's kind of cute. And also joining us live from UNCC in Charlotte, North Carolina, Samuel Ballard Jr. What's up, Sam?
What's up, guys?
How are you?
I'm doing lovely. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Great to hear.
Boy, what a weekend on not only a local scale, but a national scale as well. And we're going to talk about that first as we dive into it. And my goodness, the biggest shock, not that Martin Truex Jr. got another win on the 2017 season, but I think the biggest story, which has got a lot of people talking, is the fact that Kyle Larson, due to a blown motor, is not going to be one of the championship four when we come down to Homestead.
Yes!
I know you're happy about that as the anti-Larson supporter that you are, but for a lot of people, this whole scenario with Larson losing the motor, and despite the fact that he finished well in the first race and then ran into some bad luck like the rest of the field did at Talladega, it's led a lot of people to ask the question, is the system fair enough where you would have the best driver? I mean, think about it. Larson's won 4 races already in 2017. Is this a product of the system not being right or the championship deciding not being what it should be? Or is it just tough luck for Larson?
I think it's this particular one is he did run really well this year.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the 4 wins, okay, but the system is designed to make you have to push every race, and some of it could be tough luck. Now I know Eric Graham would be excited because the motor blew up in NASCAR, and that's been rare.
It's very rare. Yeah, you're correct.
It used to be much more common. So I think that yes, tough luck, but also maybe they were. Not you hear our short track program isn't where we want it to be or something like that.
Right.
So this could have been where they had a couple tracks or stretch where they weren't where they were good, or they weren't up to snuff, for lack of a better term.
Sam,
Go ahead.
No, I was actually going to throw it up to you. I mean, considering the fact that we looked at Ganassi Racing, especially not only with Larson, but Larson and McMurray as being potential threats for the championship. You had McMurray get taken out in the big crash, Larson losing the motor in Kansas, and now all of a sudden they've gone from 2 threats or 2 bullets in the barrel down to none. But Larson is the biggest surprise because I think Truex himself even said that if he had a free pass all the way to Homestead, he would still be worried about Larson because that's a track where he runs so well at because he could run right out next to the wall. How shocked are you to see Larson not be in contention anymore? And do you think it is a sign that the system needs tweaking, or did Larson just simply not run well enough? What is your opinion?
Well, it's not like this one race decided the next round.
Mm-hmm.
Larson had Talladega, Kansas, but he blew that.
Multiple opportunities.
Yeah, so it's not like Kansas was the deciding factor. And good golly, if he won Talladega, we wouldn't be talking about this right now. So I think that's one thing. But am I the only one that thinks this could be an inside job by Hendrick?
Well, the conspiracy theories are going to rain down from Sam Ballard Jr.
I mean, think about this though. Hypothetically speaking, now granted, they're not paying me to say this. Maybe they are. I don't know. But
judging by that poster in your background,
yeah. Ignore the poster, the Jimmy Johnson poster in our room. But if Kyle Larson advanced, which he should have well advanced, Jimmy Johnson or Chase Elliott wouldn't have been in the next round, or a slimmer chance of both of them making it into the next round. That's all I'm saying.
On the other hand, though, Sam, if you look at it this way, if Matt Kenseth, which is another topic I want to get into discussion with, if Kenseth doesn't have his snafu on pit road, then the same can be said for one of those two, Johnson or Elliott. So it could have went either way. As far as Larson's concerned, though, the biggest thing that jumps out at me is that Truex himself said when he was asked a couple of weeks ago, not just this week, but prior, who is the one guy you're worried about if you have an automatic bye to get into Homestead, which he virtually does. He doesn't want to admit it, but he kind of does. Mm-hmm. And the guy was Larson. So now that you remove Larson from that platform or from that equation, we're down to 8. Of the 8 guys that are left, I don't know if anybody can beat Truex at Homestead, despite the fact that Johnson was fastest in testing there today. But I think Larson was the one guy who was nearly a shoo-in. And in fact, I still think Larson can win that race. Larson may be the first guy ever under this platform to win that race and not be a playoff contender when we get to Homestead. So with that being said, though, I kind of think that Truex has kind of upped his odds a little bit by Larson having some bad luck at Kansas.
I just think that, now granted, I'm a little biased because I do like Hendrick, and I'm a big Jimmy Johnson fan, but we're going to Martinsville. Hendrick Motorsports pretty much dominates that track the last 20 years. It's hard not to count on Jimmy Johnson or Chase Elliott, for the matter of fact. More Jimmy Johnson, though. I mean, come on.
I think Chase Elliott's going to do his, I don't know how he's still in the chase because of, his...
That's because they named it after him, Josh.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, NASCAR is trying to vie away from the Chase name, and they're trying to call it just the playoffs. But, yes, Chase had to have been in mind when they came up with that name a few years ago.
They're like, gosh dang it, we had everything marked out properly. And, Phil Elliott naming his son Chase. Who does that?
Yeah. But his end of the race performance, as we've seen all year, where he, had either a great finish or a win coming to him, and he just blows it. So I don't know how he got this far.
Well, same thing could be said with Ryan Blaney. I mean, and you look at Ryan Blaney and how
he's sneaking in there. Yeah.
I mean, he may be the underdog when we come down to Homestead, in just 3 races time now.
How cool would that be?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. There are a lot of. I mean, here's the thing. Kyle Larson's motor failure at Kansas has proven to us that no one is safe. I mean, I think all of us, amongst the 3 of us, and I'll be open to admit it, we all kind of penciled Larson, Truex, Kyle Busch as the top 3 to be at Homestead at the end of the year. And
I don't think Josh penciled Larson in.
Well,
I wouldn't want him in,
not
but
by choice.
He was a threat, yeah.
But in terms of statistics, I would say so.
Harvick had a strong year. I mean, there were a few ups and downs, but
that's the thing, though. They're all having strong years, except Martin Truex just saying, "Here, hold my beer. You think you got a strong year? Watch this."
Yeah, exactly. So, but now that Larson's kind of out of the fold, it opens up the opportunity for not only a couple other guys to get themselves into the mix, but it kind of raises the eyebrow that, hey, you know what? Maybe under this format, nobody is safe.
Well, look at Martin Truex Jr. last year at Talladega. Look at Jimmy Johnson at Dover. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's fair comparison. And I'll cite an article that Kelly Crandall, it might have been Reed Spencer, wrote for either Racer.com or Motorsport.com, but they both kind of touched on the same thing. A lot of people have come out and said, hey, the fact that Larson's not in the mix, that shows how unfair the playoff system is. And they argued to the counterpoint. They said, you know what? The fact that Larson's not in the mix argues that as Whiskers, the shop cat, is crowding our GoPro shot at the moment. They kind of counter-argued that this kind of proves that the system forces you to be on your game for the final 10 races of the year, and I agree with them. I don't think that Larson not being in the fold is a flaw of the system. I think it kind of highlights the energetic portion of the system, that, hey, you got to be on your A game, and you have multiple chances. Larson had 3 chances to win, to push himself forward, and he didn't do it. That's on him.
This is not a team sport. Isn't everyone from the engine builders to the guy that changes the tires to Kyle Larson all responsible to make sure that car gets to the championship round?
Exactly.
So at the end of the day, all right, maybe it wasn't a Ganassi engine, but they bought the engine. Someone from that team they bought it from overlooked something, engine parts break, So I mean,
it could be luck of the draw. It could be him over revving it, It could be a lot of things that caused it to fail. It could have been a bad part from the get-go. Maybe somebody did leave some metal shards in there. So, whatever it was.
This is different from like Kurt Busch. Like Kurt Busch had 25 races after he won the first one to prepare for the chase, and all of a sudden he couldn't perform. At the end of the day, Kyle Larson should be like, damn, it's been a really tight year this far. I couldn't control this, but hey, I'm going to go out there and try to win Homestead, try to win the rest of the races, which Kyle Larson has a fair shot at winning every single race from here on out.
He could throw a monkey wrench in the rest of it by, winning stages and, just taking stuff away.
If they want no change to NASCAR. Have Kyle Larson win every damn race and be leading the points, but not win the championship.
Now, another driver who suffered a similar fate, however, not in the same fashion, was Matt Kenseth. And although Kenseth has not had as flashy of a season that the other drivers have had throughout the year, he still was somebody who was going to be in contention all the way down to the wire. Second biggest story of the race was the massive crash that took place off turn number 2 and down the backstretch, where Eric Jones almost ended up upside down, collected a number of cars, including McMurray, who killed his chase chances, and Matt Kenseth. However, Kenseth's car, according to some, was deemed repairable, but they sent too many men over the wall under that 5-minute clock rule that NASCAR put in place at the beginning of the year, thus automatically disqualifying him from being able to continue in competition. So my question to both of you, and Sam, I'll start with you first, is, number one, is the rule fair? And number two, does the blame lie with Kenseth and team and Jason Ratcliffe, or should we parlay it more so over to the fact that they found themselves in this position in the first place?
I
know it's tough. It's tough.
No, it's not tough. One, I applaud NASCAR for being consistent and making the call. So go NASCAR. This is what we need in the sport. We need consistency, unlike F1.
I was just
I got you, Josh. I got you. Second, this comes down to Jason Radcliffe. I mean, you can't control if someone's driving like a butt. At the end of the day, Jason Radcliffe is that head coach. He is that cheerleader, head coach, number one guy on that team. He needs to say, hey, you, not you over the wall. And if at the end of the day, it comes down to Jason Radcliffe. Matt Kenseth has no control over who's touching the race car when he's strapped in. Plain and simple.
No, you're right.
So, and he doesn't have a ride for next year. So Jason Radcliffe pretty much screwed him out of a shot of a championship and maybe out of a decent ride next year. Otherwise, he'll be driving Carl Long's car if that ends up being the case.
Now, I will say, over the radio, I believe it was Radcliffe said that I told them 6 over the wall. Somebody down there can't count.
Yeah, and in Radcliffe's defense, it does sound like that he tried all he could to prevent this from happening. But I'm going to cycle it back to an original bitch that I had at the beginning of the year. And bitch is fair enough word to say, Josh. I don't like the 5-minute clock rule for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's not something that's standardized where NASCAR has it visible and viewable by all teams and fans. And I'll cycle this to the power play in the National Hockey League. If a team receives a penalty and they're granted the opportunity to have an extra man advantage, that clock is visible on the television time clock.
Yeah.
So to me, if a driver is deemed to be involved in a crash and is put up on the position to be on the 5-minute clock, that number, that clock, that timeline needs to be viewable for not only the team to see under NASCAR's eye, but the fans to see as well. And I think that's a fair request on subject.
And I think it's doable
part.
because you look at the sports car races where they have the number,
exactly,
the position displayed in a digital format. IndyCar has not only their position, but their pit time when they're stopped.
As well as push-to-pass time. I mean,
yes,
all that information is made available immediately to fans, spectators, everybody, through a digital platform. And NASCAR's at a point where they have no excuse not to provide that data to those who need it. So if you have that one standardized option, then I think it's fair enough to pass it along to fans. My second gripe is if you are putting a team on that 5-minute clock and they're only allowed to work on the car on pit road, who cares how many people you send over the wall? I mean, at that point, you might as well go to the unemployment line and grab a couple of guys and ask them to start doing some work.
Right.
Because if this is your season, which it turned out to be for Kenseth, then I don't think you should be able to limit those guys because you're only allowing them X amount of minutes to get the job done. It's on them.
I have to argue that last point where, and this is NASCAR's reasoning behind it, and I agree, is safety. I mean, we've had the whole reason there's a pit road speed limit is because of crew guys getting killed.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because people fly, and we've seen the crew guys still get hit. Luckily there hasn't been a death in many years, but there still have been injuries. Even if it was just the guy still had the wrench in as the car started pulling away, and they get knocked over. I mean, things happen.
I think it's a control thing, and at the end of the day, what Josh is saying with the safety and everything, I mean that's the most important part. I get your point though, Eric, but let's be real now. NASCAR'd rather do what they did to Matt Kenseth than see someone get hit or someone get hurt really bad, where their life could be, in jeopardy,
permanently altered. We'll say.
Yeah,
but now
all for a damn pit stop.
Exactly, but I will say, why wasn't it a 1-lap penalty? I mean, penalize them, sure. It was a clear violation. not a problem. We reviewed it. Why can't it be like a 1-lap penalty or a time penalty or something like that? Versus
look what they did to Jimmy Johnson.
It was also, I believe, Terry Jones in the truck race in Daytona, who's the first driver who got nailed by being over that 5-minute clock because the team didn't realize that the 5 minutes started once you cross the pit entry line, which, again, it kind of highlights the gray area where that time needs to be made visible by officials, teams, and fans all in one shot.
I'm not a big fan of the 5-minute rule, and I think that, if you're going to keep it, there need to be some tweaks to it. But outside of that, I'm just arguing that, parking him, like, nope, that's it. You had one extra guy. That's a very extreme penalty, and yeah, they're making their point. But is it too extreme? Because what was it? We had in the Xfinity race, Hemrick was given a 1-lap penalty for pitting, just barely outside the box. And what had happened was he slid over the line, and the official was waving, telling him to back up or whatever. But they'd already, in their muscle memory mode, had pumped the car up. And it changed the right front. Now, if they took it back off, put the old tire back on, then backed up, and then rechanged it, they would have been okay. But, not thinking or just, in the hecticness and trying to rush and get it done, they left it on there, and, that's why they were given the penalty. But that was one lap. And
Could you imagine if this happened to Kyle Larson and NASCAR did this, like vice versa? What if Kenseth's motor blew up and this happened to Kyle Larson? I think this would be more a bigger deal than what what it seems now.
Kenseth seemed pretty subdued when he was talking about it.
He made a comment about the fact that NASCAR kind of changed the rules as they go and whatnot. I mean, there was a little bit of a backhanded compliment in his interviews afterwards, which I kind of get. And I understand the frustration for him. And again, considering the fact that we don't know what Kenseth's doing next year, and right now sitting on the couch appears to be like the highest probability of what he's going to be doing next year.
With Greg Biffle.
Yes, I get it. I get his frustration, and I see why he's a little bit upset over how things ended for him.
I don't know. I mean, Biffle seems to be a nice guy.
He seems to be having fun, I'll tell you that. He posted a picture on Twitter today of himself in an Eeyore onesie offering $500 to the best dressed tweet that he got in response in order to the best to
I mean, that's better than the best undressed tweet.
Touche. Touche. So Truex goes on to win the race, not a surprise by much. In fact, it puts him in a good position where he already locks himself forward on to the next round, which begins now when we head into Martinsville. But Josh alluded to the Xfinity race on Saturday, which had another key talking point on the race weekend, and that was due to the fact that Christopher Bell pulled off an extreme slide job on his teammate Eric Jones, who had dominated the race and went on to grab his first career Xfinity win, while Bell himself continues on to chase a Truck Series championship this Saturday at Martinsville. With that, the question arises, was the move fair or foul? And do you approve of that style of racing? And do you think we should see more of it? And Josh, you seem eager to talk about this.
I am, very much so. All right, because Eric Jones was upset about it. He wasn't thrilled, and they're teammates. Now, here's the thing. Bell is already set to be full-time for with a ride for 2018.
Yes, with JGR.
Of course, as a driver, you want to perform. Yeah, you want to win. And I think he had the car to do it. But at the same time, to risk wrecking yourself and a teammate, I think it was an overly aggressive move, personally. Only because he drove in so deep that he couldn't hang on to it, and he came up and got rear-ended by his own teammate. And he himself hit the wall. Right. He was able to hang on and get the win, but he had a faster car. He could have waited just a little bit longer. There were more than enough laps for him to pass, clean. So I think it was... I think it was too much. I know Larry McReynolds, you're going to talk about, has a view opposite of mine.
So Josh, in your opinion, that move is a little bit more on the dirty side as opposed to the clean side.
Yes.
Okay, Sam, your take.
Josh, I thought you were a race car driver, not a pansy.
I don't like the bump and run. I like banging fenders. Hitting somebody on the side is one thing.
That wasn't a bump and run.
No, that was a brake check.
He just drove it in and was like, hey, okay. So let me ask you guys something. So when we're driving on the road, right, and our listeners on the radio can see where I'm coming from. If you were to drive in the back of the car in front of you, who's at blame? Is it the guy in front of you or you?
According to your national insurance company, usually if you hit the car in front of you, you are to blame.
Okay, so nothing forced Eric Jones to drive in the back of Christopher Bell.
Okay, but I'll say this. If you're on the parkway doing, let's speed limit 65. Let's say you're doing 75 or 80, which is the normal for the Parkway. All right, but now say somebody comes out of one of those center rest areas and they're not up to speed yet, and you're coming along, you're in your lane, and they just come right out in front of you. Now, I'm not talking about you not providing a safe following distance. I'm talking about them cutting right across in front of you at a speed that you couldn't slow
But
down.
he didn't just get in front of him. Like Eric Jones, first off, Eric Jones knew exactly what Christopher Bell was doing. This reminded me of the 2008 race with Carl Edwards and Jimmy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl Edwards did that NASCAR video game move, diving down the bottom and thought he could make it stick.
Yeah,
and at the end of the day, it didn't
Almost,
stick.
can you believe that was almost 10 years ago?
Oh my!
I know. How fantastic
We're
is that?
getting old quick, man.
Sam was a little boy back then.
Still am.
Sam's still
Anyway.
a little boy.
Anyway, my point is, if Christopher Bell drove underneath him and Eric Jones spotted, I said, all right, he's underneath you, he's in front of you now. Eric Jones, the mature driver that everyone thinks he is, he should have let off the gas, said, all right, this knucklehead's going to run up to the wall. I don't want him running up in front of me. I'm going to tap the brake and just drive right underneath him.
Okay, I'll give you half a point on that because, yes, I believe that he could have checked up a little bit. But at the same time, I still don't think Christopher Bell's move was very good because I think, regardless, he drove it in so deep he was going to bounce off the wall anyway. I think he went in too hard on that one.
I don't know. Listen, I'm going to be biased here. I love Christopher Bell. I think he's a fantastic race car driver. I think he's the next Jimmy Johnson of the sport. I've said it here on the show before. Making moves like that shows that I'm right.
Kyle Busch is a great race car driver too, but everybody hates him.
No, but you see the difference is if Kyle Busch made that move, everyone in Kansas would have felt that. But instead, Christopher Bell and the wall only felt that move.
Here's the one thing I like to take out of it: the fact that the move that we're talking about took place amongst teammates, because there's such a fear amongst the stock car world that it's going to turn into Formula One soon, where you only have
team orders.
Yeah, exactly. You only have X amount of cars by X amount of teams, and you don't have that style of racing amongst the inbreds. And it's nice to see somebody like Christopher Bell.
What kind of term is that?
So, you know what I mean?
I know we're talking about NASCAR fans
but that's
here.
the thing. They race for the same organization under the same banner. They have to go to the same Monday morning meeting. And the fact that Bell was as aggressive as he was in chase to that first career win, it kind of shows that, you know what, at least somebody.
If Danica Patrick and Ricky Stenhouse race on the same team, would that be considered incest?
No, that's
hold on.
Inbred.
What the hell does that mean?
That meaning that they're all brewed under the same awning. Like they all race for the same organization, yet they were still going at it hard enough.
I get what you're saying, but come on, this is not F1. These guys have fenders and balls. Come on.
That's the fear as to the direction in which the sport is heading, and it's nice to see them kind of ruffle each other's feathers a little bit in order.
Look at Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson 7 years ago at Texas and beating the crap out of each other, and then Steve Letarte was like, "Yeah, go ahead, Chad. You can have our crew because you're going to win the championship." Come on. That's what NASCAR's all about. NASCAR's all about ticking people off and then putting differences aside to come together as a team to win a championship, but still be mad as hell because we're better than you. That's what NASCAR's all about. America. Stock car, yeah.
So Truex gets a win on the Cup side in Kansas.
That was emotional, though, because they lost one of their team.
Yeah, an on-the-road fabricator passed away unexpectedly. And excuse me for not having
Jim
a name
Watson.
in front of me. Jim Watson. Thank you, Josh.
Yep.
Jim Watson, I believe he's 55 years old, right? Very young guy who's been in the sport for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Passed away unexpectedly Saturday night, and Truex carried the Furniture Row Racing banner to victory lane with him on Sunday. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, Christopher Bell got the win in the Xfinity race on Saturday. Truck Series had the week off. This week, it's going to reciprocate a little bit. Cup Series in Martinsville with the Truck Series as they begin their round of 6, and they will begin the process of narrowing themselves down to 4, as will the Cup guys in their round of 8 this weekend at Martinsville.
Why can't we keep it the same across the...
Again, that's an argument that I've had. If you want to make this playoff scenario, something that is convenient and easy for fans to understand, to listen to and watch and enjoy, you need to make it symmetrical across the board.
You're dealing with NASCAR fans. You got to make it simple.
It can't be this. Like if you're going to have a round of 8 in the top 2 series, why have a round of 6 in the third series? I don't get it. Keep it simple, stupid. That's the answer for it all. Make it so that way I can understand without investing too much time and energy.
Before we go to break, pop quiz. Did you hear Harvick's interview post race?
I did.
Okay, about Truex, taking the points and
And honestly, I didn't even think of it until I heard
All right.
that on Monday.
Educate one of these NASCAR inbreds here. What do you say?
So Harvick got interviewed by NBC Sports, and he said very honestly, it's a good thing that Truex is doing what he's doing by winning all these stages and races because it's taking all the bonus points and it's kind of pushing them over to one side, meaning that he's taking away those bonus points from other drivers aside from just the four,
So
which is Harvick.
do they DQ him and then give second place the first place points? I mean, what?
No. The point that Harvick is making is he's kind of happy that it's just one guy who's dominating all these races and all these stages because, okay, you already got Truex penciled in as a lock for Homestead, but the rest of the 7 are going to fight it out for that spot. Mm-hmm. And once you get there, it all resets, and it resets to the max. It is just pretty much winner take all. Bonus points, stage points don't matter when you get to Homestead. Truex already kind of stamped his ticket to that point, so now the rest of the 7 kind of fight it out. And since Truex is the one running away with it, it kind of leaves the rest of them to fight for even ground now. Mm-hmm. And that was a point that I really overlooked, and I think Harvick hit the nail on the head. And I forget who the pit reporter was asking the question, but he kind of laughed a little bit when when Harvick said it. And Harvick said, "No, I'm serious." He said, I'm happy that Truex is the guy who's dominating all this stuff because it kind of opens up the door for us to be best of the rest.
Because they were worried going in before they got that win.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's a really good point, and I think these next 3 races will be the true test for Truex and his team. Hasn't been so good at Martinsville, hasn't been so good at Phoenix. Texas, I think he has a shot at winning. And Homestead, despite it being a 1.5-mile track, is not a track that has proven to be to Truex's liking. Mm-hmm. So it's a little
Let's be honest now. Who likes Homestead? Not even Mother Nature likes Homestead.
Well, fair enough, although
I liked it better back when it was Hurricanes, designed like Indy.
I mean, I think it's a great track. I mean, it provides different winners. Back in the day when Roush actually used to win.
It's one of the better 1.5-mile tracks on the schedule, which if Eric Graham was here, he would argue me to the bone that 1.5-mile tracks are going to be the death of NASCAR, which I can't argue too much on them. But at the end of the day, if I was going to pick a 1.5-mile track, Homestead is the one where I think we should end the season on, and that's what they're going to be doing in, hard to believe, just 4 weeks' time. We will have a Sprint Cup champion for 2017.
But considering all of our local tracks are done with their point season, that it's almost kind of weird. Like, racing's still on?
Yeah. It really is. Yeah. And it's all 3 of NASCAR's top series that are yet to be decided. Yeah. Xfinity as well after the weekend in Kansas. It's going to be wild. And
they're going to run it right down to the wire, whereas Formula One looks like it very well may have a champion in the next race.
It was over a month ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. Formula One was on U.S. soil.
Eric Brennan, wait, though. Bubba Wallace is in the 43 for next year. I am excited.
The hashtag RO43KIE.
Screw the stupid hashtag. Screw it. Bubba is back. Hashtag Bubba back.
That is a very good story.
Bubba got back. I don't know.
Bubba Wallace get that opportunity in that Richard Petty Motorsports number 43. Sponsorship information has not been released just yet, but according to King Richard himself, there are sponsors, including some new entries into the sport on
Domino's.
the docket of 43.
Domino's.
I hope so. After all
that
the
or
work
Papa John's. Papa John's should just come and swoop Bubba up. Bubba and Papa.
Look at it this way, right? You got Burger King introducing spicy nuggets since Wendy's dropped it off the menu. Papa John's would be brilliant. Do the same thing. Step on in, sweep Bubba up off the feet, stop him from getting the Domino's, and all of a sudden they're the new heroes.
Got to maybe some quality pizza,
As long as I get it within 30 minutes.
There you go.
Hey, but Bubba's back. I am pumped. I am excited. This made my week, Bubba Wallace. I know you listen to the show. All our fans, you need to tweet Bubba Wallace because he will respond to you.
He will. Don't forget the hashtag RPM podcast.
Hashtag Bubba's back.
Bubba is back. And you know what? The RPM podcast will be back, too. In just a couple of moments, we come back on the other side. We're going to talk about Formula One after an exhilarating race on U.S. soil at the Circuit of the Americas. Also, IndyCar testing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway today with the 2018 bodywork. And on the short track side, we had Wall Stadium Spooky Spectacular this past weekend. And Brandon Grosso picked up a big win at New Egypt Speedway in a dirt modified. All that and more when we come back to the RPM podcast. You're listening to Josh Matthews, Sam Bell Jr., Eric Brennan, and Whiskers on a laptop. We'll be right back to the RPM podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Please come back.
Hey everyone, this is Eric Brennan from the RPM Podcast. If you're looking for a dependable full auto repair and preventative maintenance center, then you need to check out O'Shea's Auto Repair in Wall, New Jersey. The family man himself, Tim O'Shea, has been providing the highest quality of automotive repair since 2000 on both domestic and imported cars, trucks, and SUVs. From race cars to street cars, O'Shea's Auto Repair covers it all. For more information, visit their website at o'sheasautorepair.com. O'Shea's Auto Repair, supporter of the RPM Podcast and proud sponsor of the O'Shea Auto Repair Factory stops at Wall Stadium Speedway. Welcome back to the RPM Podcast. I almost had a giggle attack.
A what attack? A Yingling attack?
No. Oh my God.
I think you're drinking Coors.
I wouldn't be so lucky. A giggle attack. I don't know why. I just sent a picture of myself to Sam and Eric, and it was with one of those like Halloween filters on Instagram. And I found myself to be hilarious, so I started giggling right when I was about to start talking.
Oh, just this time?
And yeah, well, for right now.
Oh my God,
And
Eric!
I have tears in my eyes because I'm trying to hold it back. You're listening to the RPM Podcast. Josh Matthews is here. Sam Bauer Jr. live from the University of Charlotte. Right?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
You're going to get it one week.
University of North Carolina in Charlotte. There you go. Fair enough. And we talked about the stock car portion of our program. Now we're going to shift things to the open wheel. And believe it or not, there's a lot to talk about in terms of what happened in Formula One, not just because of the fact it was the one and only time they raced in the United States at the Circuit of the Americas. And it was funny. I was listening to a sister podcast, the Untitled Jeff Gluck podcast it is. And Jeff happened to be...
Who untitles their podcast? Only Jeff Gluck does that.
Exactly. Jeff, if you're not familiar, Jeff normally a Circle Track media member, per se, elected to, through the voting of his Patreon, supporters, ended up suggesting that Jeff heads to Circuit of the Americas to cover the Formula One race in Austin, and he went to do that. It was the first F1 race he's ever been a part of. And the one thing that he mentioned, which reigns so true, is that traditionally, especially at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, COTA, the driver who gets the jump on the start and ends up leading at turn one ends up going on to win the race. And that didn't happen here. Sebastian Vettel got the jump on the start, got around Lewis Hamilton early. Hamilton was able to chase him down about 5-6 laps into the event to pass him for the lead. Although Hamilton went on to win, the biggest storylines did not come from there. For one, Carlos Sainz, who made a start in the Renault, ended up with a flashy result after finishing in the top 10 for them after Nico Hülkenberg had a DNF. The two Haas cars on their own soil ended up not scoring any points or being able to capture. In fact, I think one of them
Just
didn't even
outside
finish.
the points, I think. I
Yeah.
think Grosjean was 11th.
Yep.
They've been doing so well this year if they're not wrecking each other.
Exactly. But the biggest story of the race, which is something that resonates across all racing-related platforms, is that Max Verstappen caught Kimi Räikkönen, the Ferrari driver, for third on the final lap, and ended up making a tough pass to the right-handed turn, dipping all four wheels off the racing surface and onto the curbing, and getting by Räikkönen, and in a rather awkward pre-podium ceremony, was then deemed to have suffered a 5-second penalty, removing him from third, pushing him back to fourth, and putting Räikkönen back on the podium in something which came together rather late as they were getting ready to start the podium ceremony. Max Verstappen, in response to the penalty, ended up calling all the Formula One race officials idiots, in which Charlie Whiting, who is one of the heads of Formula One's officiating crew, said that he expects an apology from Verstappen, one of which I personally hope Verstappen does not give. Before I give my take on it, Josh, I know that this was a race that you were heavily involved in throughout the weekend. I want to know what you thought of the race as a whole, and more importantly, Verstappen's move, fair, foul, deserving of the penalty. What's your take?
Well, overall, I think it was one of the better races Formula One's had this year. Just overall, a lot of excitement. Vettel start off the, off the start, that pass. Then you had, what do I have? I have so much stuff listed for this. Ricciardo trying to get by Bottas, on the second lap. I mean, that was a great battle until his engine failed, which, I mean, that really hurt Red Bull's day. Outside of the Verstappen incident, which now Vettel's pass off the beginning, he actually, similar to that Eric Jones, Christopher Bell incident, slid up in front of Hamilton. and pretty much went off the track, or beyond the curbing to complete that pass. Cars were all over the rumble strips the entire day without any other penalties. So the Verstappen getting a penalty for doing the same thing that so many other cars had done. The only difference was it was for a podium position.
Right.
And if they didn't,
And it was Kimi.
Yeah, it was against Kimi. Now here's the thing: Nick Render would argue that Kimi should be off the team and gone, but he had a strong run. He really did. It ended up on the podium, and he was going to be damn near the podium if they didn't get that penalty for Verstappen. I just think, and Mark Webber even said on BBC4 that it was an decision from the stewards.
Right.
And I kind of agree. The problem is that it was inconsistent. They penalized Verstappen for this one incident, but they didn't penalize anybody else for making basically the same move in various parts of the track. So I don't think it was fair. And Verstappen, I mean, he drove. I forget where he started, but it was way in the back. They suffered an engine penalty.
Right. Yep.
Because they had an engine failure or problem, and they switched it out. So the penalty was starting way back on the grid. He drove himself all the way up there and got to a podium position, and then they took it away from him. For one pass when Kimi was blocking like crazy anyway, which not that he wouldn't, but I mean, come on.
Right, and Verstappen gained a lot of time up on Kimi, almost to the point where Kimi almost deserved to lose third place because of how quickly Verstappen closed the gap on him. And the one thing that I take away from it, and I didn't see the race live. I went back and I watched it later on, especially the final lap. And it just bothers me as from a fan's perspective. You see Verstappen making this valiant late race charge, catch Raikkonen, make a pass. Yeah, all four tires were off the racing surface, but he didn't shortcut the track. It seemed like he kind of was in a position where
they were all driving that through the chicane that way anyway, and there was no grass there.
And to have that moment stripped away from the eyes of the fans as being a legitimate move or a legitimate pass, I mean, it's almost like a lot of people cite, and Josh, I know you're not a fan of this, the Odell Beckham Jr. catch where he made that one-handed backwards dive into the end zone. He caught the ball, but the Giants went on to lose the game. So the catch kind of loses a little bit of, of its meaning behind it. And the same goes to me for the drive for Verstappen. I mean, yeah, his charge up through the field was amazing. The pass was amazing. But the fact that they stripped him of that podium finish, it kind of loses that luster a little bit. And I think Max gets it, and that's why he's so frustrated with the Formula One officials, I should say.
Well, I just think it's the lack of consistency when it comes to the F1 officials. And it's like you guys noted that they were making the moves like that all race, and then all of a sudden he does it for a podium position on a Ferrari, and the FIA is like, oh man, we gotta do something. We gotta ruin this race.
I love how they have southern accents all of a sudden, Sam.
Yeah.
Oh, we're down in Texas, y'all.
You can tell by their belt buckles.
Hey, Bill Clinton was there.
Oh.
He was, and I will tell you, the silver lining of the whole thing is that Circuit of the Americas and Formula One did a fantastic job promoting and putting together not just the race itself, but the race weekend. I mean,
you better not talk about the driver introductions, because I saw a clip of that.
That was so stupid.
It was terrible. What's the guys the Ready to Rumble?
I don't know, but
boxing?
I heard about that.
Yeah, and he apparently mispronounced half the drivers' names, and it was just obnoxious.
I probably would have too if I was in his shoes. So I can't really argue that often. You had to hear me at the World Karting Association event. I didn't know how to say half the names. When you have a 7-year-old, Sophia Dirigo. I'm still pronouncing her name wrong. This girl had to be about 7 years old, and she came up to me at the podium ceremony on Sunday, and she corrected my phonetics on about 4 drivers' names. So when you're being corrected by a 7-year-old, I sympathize with the Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy. It's not an easy job to do to talk about all these names you're not familiar with. It's hard. It's hard.
Well, you would think that if we won back-to-back World Wars, we're going to at least freaking host an F1 race, right? But no.
One would
America.
Figure. By the way, Lewis Hamilton went on a win, virtually ensuring himself a chance at another Formula One World Championship.
The deal's gonna be sealed. I think in the next race.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
Sainz? What about Sainz? Carlos Sainz?
Carlos
I love
Sainz,
Carlos
Brown.
Sainz. He is my dude.
Also,
Him and Ocon had a great battle going. I know that
Him and Ocon need to be on the same team.
I don't see that happening, but the biggest story, which bleeds
Fake
over
news.
to the American Open Wheel Racing Tour, is that Brandon Hartley, who is the LMP1 driver in the sports car ranks on the World Endurance Championship, got tabbed to drive for the Toro Rosso in place of Danny Kvyat, and apparently Hartley's debut was so successful that Toro Rosso elected entirely to just drop Kvyat from the driving lineup, and Hartley is going to be in that seat for the remainder of the year and is in contention to take over for 2018, which withdrew him as the potential favorite for the Ganassi number 10 car in the American-driven Verizon IndyCar Series.
I'm so sick of this musical chairs.
Well, and that's the thing is, and Hartley's name has been at the top of the pecking order for Ganassi's replacement in their dominant duo of teams. And remember, Ganassi in the IndyCar world is going to be stepping back from a 4-car organization down to 2. So having Dixon paired up with somebody like Hartley would seem like a really heavy punch to pack for that series. But with Hartley's decision to kind of stay with Toro Rosso in attempts to potentially land a 2018 Formula One ride, it kind of shuffled the silly season running order a little bit. And I want to ask you guys, if you had the opportunity to drive for an A-level team in IndyCar versus a C-level team in Formula One, which road would you choose? And Josh, being that you're a former racer, I'm curious what you think.
Wait, I have a question that has to be answered. Do I get a halo?
So, well, all right. The FIA is considering the halo or something.
No,
similar
Josh,
also.
stop being a pansy.
I would personally, if one had the halo protection, I would go with that. I probably would, just because I don't really want to die, especially after this year.
Who wears protection? Anyway, I would totally go with the C-level Formula One team. Why? Because I get to see the world for free. I get to race at Coda. Coda's a badass track. Like, that screams like, don't mess with us, Coda. Unless you're Max Verstappen, then we mess with you. Yeah. I mean, what A-level IndyCar team is there?
Well, Ganassi and Penske are right up there as the upper echelon of IndyCar.
I'd rather drive their sports car, not screw IndyCar. Who watches IndyCar? Nobody watches IndyCar.
Sam does have a point. I mean, IndyCar is, it's been years that they've been suffering. You have the purse issues. You have, they really need to. They have some great stuff, and we talked about earlier with keeping the fans involved as far as having the position on the cars, having the pit times, and all. The interaction and the push to pass stuff. I mean, that's equivalent to the DRS. So I don't know. I think they have a good thing. It's just they don't have the best racing product, and then a lot of people get turned off by it. And
I will argue that IndyCar is one of the best racing products that you could find.
At Texas, yes.
Not all
that's pretty much where you go.
And the idea is the series was in fact testing today with a couple of Honda drivers with that in terms of James Hinchcliffe and Scott Dixon at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the 2018 bodywork, which with a full livery on the bodywork and on the car, it looks amazing. I mean, like drool down the side of my face, amazing. Like I saw Hinchcliffe's Arrow number 5, and it was out of this world incredible. The back end of the car looks relatively naked with a narrow, thin rear wing, but it's how an Indy car is intended to look. It looks fast, and I appreciate that.
There was the big thing for the body package. They were going to get rid of that Kardashian bumper.
Yeah, because all it did was create a higher risk of debris flying off and hitting another
more carbon
driver,
fiber for.
But with that in mind, I expect a racing product to pick up as well. Now, with Brandon Hartley, we shall see. With Brandon Hartley now potentially staying in Formula One for 2018, it forced Chip Ganassi to kind of pull the trigger a little bit on who he would put in the number 10 car, and they elected a tab sophomore driver. So no, it wasn't Danica Patrick. They elected a tab Ed Jones, who had a thrilling breakout rookie season for the underfunded underdog Dale Coyne racing team. Also was the Rookie of the Year at the Indy 500 this season to take over the number 10 car. To be truthful, I think Jones earned the ride. I'm not sure if that's going to parlay into spectacular results because I think Ganassi as a whole has been struggling as an organization in IndyCar over the last season. And with Kanal moving to Foyt, now it was announced that Connor Daly was being released from his ride. Not sure who's going to take over that seat. Matthias Lace, who's an Indy Lights graduate, is expected to move into that seat. So many moving parts and pieces in IndyCar for 2018, and I'm curious if any of those moves or any of these driver changes stand out to you, and if it excites you for the 2018 season.
But what happens to Newgarden?
Newgarden will be staying with Penske to defend his title.
Because I was reading something earlier where he actually mentioned that he might want a shot at Formula One now.
I think if the Formula One opportunity presented itself, Newgarden would jump on it, as Brandon Hartley has. But I don't expect that opportunity to come to pass just yet.
See, I think with Formula One, your position as a driver is less secure. But when you're there,
unless you're Felipe Massa.
Yeah. But you have a larger fan base, a more loyal fan base.
I think it's more
crowd.
brand. I think it's brand loyalty, not driver loyalty. Like if Lewis Hamilton went to go race for Force India, would he really have a following?
Well, Nick Rando would still take fashion tips from him, but that's about all I got on that.
In terms of the Formula One allure, if you could say. From what I saw is that Haas has already retained Grosjean and Magnussen for 2018. However, judging by what happened to Danny Kvyat, we may or may not see that take place. And I think anything is possible, as far as driver lineups and whatnot in Formula One. But Sam, you mentioned Felipe Massa, and that's something else that stuck out to me. Robert Kubica, or Kubica, depending on how you want to pronounce it, the Polish driver who lost a lot of mobility in one of his hands in terms of as they kept rolling on through, after his rally crash, and it looked as though he would never get a shot at Formula One once again. Williams has given him a number of test sessions in their equipment, and Massa has been quoted through motorsport.com as saying if Kubica comes back to Formula One, he is guaranteed to have problems. Massa seems relatively bitter about the chance of him losing his Formula One ride, and it seems like something that's a bit of a turn-off.
Just retire already.
That's because he should have lost. Don't get me started with this.
He should have lost his ride a few years ago, right?
Yeah, like 20 years ago.
Potentially.
But I mean, really, Massa and Alonso are the only names that are, from when that I remember as, being a kid and watching that are still there. So, I mean, is it trying to tie over, to a younger or to, I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I think that Kubica comeback story would be one of the best in all of motorsport next year if he could, in fact, pull it off. And Williams has kind of downgraded a little bit in terms of performance, so maybe Robert could help elevate them a little bit, but only time will truly be able to tell. The series will, in fact, move their way to Mexico City for the Mexico Grand Prix, and that may, in fact, parlay into a bit of an announcement where IndyCar could be inking Mexico City as another stop on their 2018 racing calendar. A lot of it is also contingent on that, as Esteban Gutierrez has an IndyCar Series ride available for said race. But again, time will be the only thing that we are able to tell. One thing that we did not talk about in the stock car portion of our show, the ARCA Racing Series wrapped up their 2017 campaign at Kansas as well this past weekend. And Austin Terrio clinched the ARCA Racing title for Ken Schrader Racing, while Michael Self ended up grabbing his first ever ARCA Racing Series win.
He did it all by himself.
He did. In fact, he did. In a race came out to the race restart.
Sam's going to hang up any second.
The RPM podcast, full of dad jokes and some racing news.
On the local side, we told you heading into the break that Brandon Grasso, who was rumored to have himself scheduled to be in an ARCA Racing ride full-time for 2018, did in fact go on to grab his first ever modified feature event win at New Egypt Speedway. That is a great story that took a year to develop. Grasso and his family have played a huge part in helping New Egypt go around and around. I don't mean that in terms of a pun or whatnot. And watching him get the win, or at least seeing him get the win through my laps results and whatnot. A very popular win amongst those in the racing circles here in the state of New Jersey, and we wish him all the best of luck in his racing ventures for 2018. As far as Wall Stadium Speedway, was our annual Spooky Spectacular, and I think for those who were in attendance for the modified event on Saturday, the 75 lapper for the 304 modifieds turned out to be one of the best of the year. They ended up qualifying. The plan was to keep everybody straight up. They had a redraw of the top 8. No surprise that your champion, Jimmy Blewett, ended up being handed the 8th starting spot, in which he worked himself forward, played the pit strategy right, pitted halfway through the event, and ended up moving on to win the 75-lap feature event over Eric Moriello and Andrew Crouch, your top 3. It was awesome. I don't know if, Josh, were you ever?
No, I didn't make it.
I wasn't sure, and I know, Sam, you're down in North Carolina, but it was still great.
I was trying. It was going to be a last-minute thing, and yeah.
I was there in spirit.
In the Snap-on Tool Sports division, Tyler Truex backed up his track championship with a postseason victory. Jared T. Giant Tommaso and Jonathan Ray were your top 3. Factory Stocks ran twin races. Elliott Wall ended up winning race number 1 with Scott Riggleman in second, and they ended up reciprocating those results in race 2. Scott Riggleman got the checkered flag, while Elliott Wall had to settle for second. Hellberg ended up in third in race 2, while Haverstick ended up in third in race number 1.
Good for Scott, though, after that flip.
Absolutely.
Last week to get back and get a win.
Scott had, for those who may not be familiar, Scott had a terrible crash up in New Hampshire while racing in not really a borrowed ride, but a hired ride that he had a chance to run a car that's more like a street stock up there.
Yeah.
Got a little bit loose off the second corner, caught the tire barrier on the back straightaway, which essentially launched him off into the woods. Fortunately, the way the car landed, Scott was no worse for the wear. However, his wife, Nancy, did have a scare back at home after receiving text messages from friends in the grandstands about her hubby flying out of the ballpark, something which I would not have been happy to hear about.
No.
On the 4-cylinder race, it was probably one of the best of the year, and it was a photo finish between Christian LaCicero of Lavalette and T.J. Graves in the family-owned number 9, and the Thrilla, who was a 2016 4-cylinder champion, Todd Pilla, finished in third.
Thrilla.
All I can say about the race is wow.
There were some hard hits.
Yeah, they had a big wreck for the lead, which took out your champion, Brian Osborne, Darian McLaren, and Jeff Loesch early on in the going. And at the end of the race, it looked as though T.J. Graves tried to pull off a bit of a bumper run on Cicero. Graves then got loose off the final corner. They drag raced to the checkered flag, and I remember, as I had an out-of-body experience while calling this race, I think all I said when they crossed the line was, wow. Sam, I see you shaking your head. When you see the video, you will understand. It was amazing.
I can't.
It was. I didn't mean it like that. And then in the Legend Car ranks, of course, Mike Alcaro showed up as he has all year long. Ends up grabbing.
Let me guess, he won.
Cars.
Oh man, I feel like he does that every time he shows up at Wall Stadium.
Long Island natives Richie Davidowitz, and Kevin Nowak rounded out your podium.
Kevin Nowak, he's a good guy.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to former, past guest of ours, Aaron Lineman, with the 24 Hours of Lemons race, the 3-pedal Mafia team. They finished 8th. That's overall. They started 17th out of 111 cars. They have 3 classes. They run in the fastest of the 3 classes, and so they were 7th fastest in their class and 8th overall for the race. So, I mean, good job, guys. And they've always run strong, but that's pretty cool to see. Seriously,
that is not fake news right there.
No, but out of 111 cars, I mean, seriously, that's a lot. So
his finishing average is better than mine, better than my GPA.
Mine too, son. Mine too.
We have the East Coast Indoor Dirt Nationals practice set for November 30th, ahead of their December 1st and 2nd racing in Trenton for indoor. They're changing the name. It was Sunbank Arena, whatever it's becoming. I don't know. I can't keep up. They change sponsors all the damn time. It gets frustrating. But do we have anything on King of the Green? I know factory stock driver Brian O'Shea went up there. Something got screwed up on a restart position, and then he ended up breaking a ball joint anyway and hitting the wall. So I've seen, unfortunately, some tough luck out there for some of the wall guys. I've had good luck out there in the snow, but it's it's a 3-hour drive out for most of the guys, and yeah. Anything? No. I
mean, I'm excited for the North-South shootout next weekend.
Okay, that's coming up. Where's that at?
Concord.
Okay.
I wish I could race in the snow, but it doesn't really snow down here.
Oh yeah. If it does, they all pile up on the highways because they've never seen it before.
Yeah, and all the bread will go away. I don't get why people buy bread and eggs and milk when it snows and stuff. That's the first stuff you shouldn't buy because it's going to go bad. People on the radio, you should call in and tell us why people buy bread and stuff. I have no idea why.
There's a picture of I think it was South Carolina. They got this light dusting of snow, and there was this massive pile up on one of the highways, and somebody had photoshopped a picture. I believe it was of Austin Dillon, blaming him for the giant pile. It was I gotta find it. It was from.
Well, one in doubt, just blame Max Verstappen. It's always his fault.
Matt Hirschberg got the win at K Green over Zane Ziner and Roger Cross. There's a Wall Stadium tie with Roger Cross right there, whereas Stephen Reed has been helping him out throughout the year at Evergreen. Street Stock Division, it was Randy Schleckner who ended up getting the win there. And on the factory stock side, it was Gerald Lawrence who beat out Wall's own Elliott Wall in that division, with Scott Sipe finishing in third.
I see what you did there.
Strong run.
What?
Elliott Wall's own Elliott Wall.
There you go. He made it easy for me.
That's terrible. All right. On that note, what have we learned today, Eric?
Oh, my goodness. I wasn't expecting this. This is scaring me. I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to filibuster as much as I can.
Sam.
Eric Brennan likes to drool at naked rear ends.
Is that what I said?
Yes.
I don't remember saying that at all.
I mean, I didn't learn that today. I knew it from past, but, it's funny. Oh, shoot. Yeah, Josh, what did you learn today, Josh?
I learned that Sam doesn't use protection, and I learned that Aaron finishes better than Sam.
Whoa. First off, God. Josh, I hate you.
You said who uses protection. You said it.
I'm talking about the halo, not... Ladies, I'm single. Find me on MySpace.
MySpace.
You know what that is?
Yeah, I do. I do. Hey, while Eric Brennan tries to figure out what he learned today, what you guys learned today is that we're on Facebook at RPM Podcast. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us, like us, share us. Come talk with us. We're lonely. I'm lonely. I need a friend.
God.
Please.
Feel free to email us at racingpodcastnj@gmail.com.
And we got T-shirts, and if you want hats, stickers, if you think that you could do a better job podcasting than us, let us know. Please let us know.
Absolutely. Tell us how to fix it.
Yeah, please. This really does need. It's a group effort here. And anyway, Eric Brennan, what did you learn today?
I learned that I love the RPM podcast so much. I say it too much in my outros. And I also learned...
Did you do the eye thing today?
So, no, thank you, because I was probably going to do it when we signed off.
See,
what eye thing?
Neil was stuck in a rut today and couldn't make it,
Yes,
so I wore my
yes.
Neil Diamond shirt.
Also, unrelated to the podcast, I threw out my back on Monday, and anybody who ever said that they have back trouble, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt for their entire life. That's
because you're too busy bending over and drooling over your ends.
No,
It just popped in there.
That was the most pain I've ever been in my entire life. Ever. I didn't even feel the pinch of the $100 copay at the hospital. It was so bad.
All
It
right.
was terrible.
Are you feeling better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
good.
drinking.
That's all he brought. The reason why he brought that up because he wanted us to ask him how he was doing. And Josh, you did it. I didn't want to ask him because I don't care how he's doing.
I
No,
caved.
I'm fine.
I'm sorry.
It took about 4 days, but I'm fine. I'm doing good.
Oh, my God.
But I'm sad.
but it was-
Why does no one love me?
It was awful. Oh, my God. It was the worst pain I've ever felt my whole life. Ever. Like I broke my leg when I was 7. This was worse.
I sense a new intro coming.
So, no, don't do that to me. We got some time off from Wall, but the Turkey Derby schedule is in fact out. You can go to wallspeedwayracing.com and
it's
check
gonna
that out
be a
there as
good
well.
show.
I can't wait. We are pumped.
1 month.
Right on Black Friday, we're going to get racing started as we have
Yeah.
every year, and we're going to race Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and hopefully Mother Nature cooperates because she sure as hell didn't last year, and that's all.
Still got it in, though.
And also, in indoor racing news, Ryan Prix is scheduled to run in all 3 big league indoor events. That is a
He's
bit
selling
of
that
news.
car, though. He
So-
posted on his Instagram. He's selling that TQ he has.
Well, news broke this
Slightly
afternoon,
used.
according to Area Auto Racing News, that Priest is committed to compete in all 3 indoor racing events. So we'll see how that all pans out as well. All things keep your eyes on. We're going to watch all the NASCAR action at Martinsville this upcoming weekend. We'll keep tabs on the continuous testing for the 2018 bodywork and IndyCar. Sam's going to make fun of me because I'm tripping over my words, but that's okay. And
Sound like something
Hey,
else.
hey, Eric, what show are we doing right now?
the RPM podcast.
Yeah!
Drink, folks. On behalf of Josh Matthews, Sam Ballard Jr. from the UNCC, I'm Eric Brennan. We hope to have Nick Rendo back with us sometime.
We ain't
and
gonna
Neil
have
at
him
the third
back.
next week. And Whiskers will be back as well because we kicked him out. And we hope to see you all next time on the RPM podcast. Thank you all for listening, and please come back next week. Good night, everybody.
Please do.
Go to Wall.